Record. I also need to figure out how to make it so that non-hosts can record, because I tried to click record button as non-host and it didn't let me, which means I have another setting that needs to get tweaked here. But anyway.
I saw a record button. I thought, should I record myself sitting here?
You could. But as soon as I thought I had it set for anyone to record, which is like what I was hoping, so that the Zoom is just here and anyone can click the button. Yeah. But it looks like only the host can record still, so I have to figure out what's up with that. So yeah, how's things?
Pretty good, actually. The weather's cooled off, which makes it nice. I've finished a few things, so I feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm doing all the stuff I'm working on right now is BS. You know, shipments from China that came in wrong and trying to, get returns, and they're really not very responsive and things like that.
Gotcha. Cool.
How about you?
Yeah, pretty much just dealing with work and family life and all that sort of stuff. I ended up having last week off from work, which was nice, but so we visited with some family members, and I got a ton of yard work done that really need to get done and all that sort of stuff. So I don't have too much support Safecast wise, just
what's the situation in school?
Situation in school? They're in, so that's good. It means I can actually work. Yeah, we haven't had any real cases in the neighborhood, so for the most part, the kids have just been in school the whole time.
So, but are they just going to school as normal, or do they have special procedures? They have to wear masks and gloves and,
Masks for sure, yeah, and they have a lot of hand sanitization going on and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, but I think it, like I said, the fact that we had one case really early in the city, and then it was pretty obviously traced back to I think Osaka. The person who came down with it had just gotten back from Osaka. So as best as anyone knows, we haven't had a COVID breakout in the city, which has sort of helped keep schools and all that sort of stuff running. So yeah, just trying to stay vigilant and keep the masks on and keep the hand sanitized.
Office the first time.
Oh yeah.
Last weekend, or for the first time in a couple of months. I know I guess we've been there 2 or 3 times since February, but
yeah,
not very often.
Yeah.
And we're starting to try and plan some things. So we're going to have some people there in November, but small scale.
Cool.
Big event at Material 1-4 Down last weekend, but it was mostly a virtual hackathon. So they had a few people there managing it, but most people were going to would be attending online.
That makes sense. So yeah, not too much to report. Safecast wise, pretty much where we were 2 weeks ago. I guess the main things on my mind are, Robin had that kind of that new device story page PR that was mostly ready to go. So I think I'd like to nudge that forward. And I know Benjamin said he, was probably going to start getting more engaged with the project. So that would be great to have him on. Andrew, I think, is in full-on job search mode at this point, so we probably won't be hearing from him until so, yeah.
Already?
Yeah, I think, or pretty soon. I think it's end of the month, which would be today, I think is what he said his contract was supposed to go to.
Okay, so that's not so long.
Yeah, so as of tomorrow, I think he might be unemployed, and so I think the thing that he mentioned to me is he's got to figure something out, and so he's just not going to try to worry about that stuff until he figures something out.
I suspect Benjamin may not be in too much different situation.
It sounded that way, yeah. He was in a startup that yeah. So both of those folks, it'd be great to have contributions, but probably they're going to have to find stable employment before we see much from them. And then the other thing,
if they find a job, if they find jobs and they say, okay, you're starting first of the month, we may have a window.
Yeah, where they're stable but actually aren't starting yet. That'd be great. So cool. And for otherwise, infrastructure and everything is pretty much up and running. I have this sort of not super high priority task that I've been working on to the platform on the Grafana server is end of life essentially. So I've been working on kind of a new approach that I think might work well, not just for Grafana, but for other things. And it ended up being useful for that library project that Jolene did. So I'd like to button that up at some point, but it's not the end of the world. Like basically what it'll buy us is some cost savings on EC2 because it's all backed by spot instances, as well as not a ton, but probably cut like $200 off of the bill, I think. Um, and then also some added flexibility. Like it was really easy to just add when Jolene or it was Jolene, I think, needed a place to host her app. It was really easy to just put one more container onto the reporting setup that I had worked out. So I think it'll buy us some increased flexibility when like new people want to deploy a new visualization for whatever. We can just sort of drop it in on the host that hosts Grafana and everything else. So
I use Grafana regularly now, but only by clicking on links that Rob sends me. I suppose is there some way to build, like, do we have the dashboards or whatever the Grafana interfaces assembled somewhere, or is there? I don't find links on the maps or on our main website.
Well, so that's kind of what that PR that Robin had open is kind of like the first step in that. Where basically we're going to start putting some Grafana graphs onto api.safecast.org. And then I think we could probably continue that trend. And so like as we, like for the maps, for example, we can start looking at, instead of having, like there's a couple of places where the map links like to like ttserve JSON or something like that. So like instead of doing that, have it linked to a Grafana dashboard for that device instead, I think would be a good way to get more leverage from the platform. And then at the end of the day, it's a graphing tool. Like that's really what it does. So it's like if you want a graph or a table based on some data source, it's good at doing that. And it can also embed things and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully the next time we need to do some sort of like a line or a table or whatever, we don't have to handle something. We can just link to a Grafana visualization. So.
Okay, and what was the other one I was going to ask about is the blacklist. Do we have a blacklist for data points that are determined to be invalid or otherwise shouldn't be mixed in?
Yeah, so not really. We probably should.
I know Nick keeps one for the for the tiles
for the tile maps. Yeah, that would be good to have some more discussion on. We talked about it a few meetings ago in the possibility of like how do we make the data more accessible? And I remember one of the things that was in that conversation was like, maybe what we could do is like build a nightly snapshot of the database with like a whole bunch of data in it, and then like clean out from that all the stuff that we know is like known to be errant or something like that. And like as part of the effort, we'll probably need some way to like filter those rows. So we might want to add like a new flag on every row. I know like Nick is always really sensitive to like, he's like, it's 100 million rows. Like we can't just add, we have to be careful about what we add. But like, I think we could support like a array column or something that has some flags on it. Like basically just like a string array.
If we're going to make a column, we shouldn't make it binary. I mean, it might be initially populated with good or not, good or bad, but eventually we probably should, if we set it up, we probably should make it at least an integer value that we can call quality.
I think
and then
like
have a threshold.
I've been thinking of like tags. Like now that we're on newer versions of Postgres, it has support for string arrays that I think is actually pretty efficient. So that's been my thinking is like, I think we can add a column that's basically an array of strings, and then we can decide what those strings are, and they could be like invalid, or they could be Safecast approved, or whatever. And I think Postgres, now that we're on like Postgres 11, I think it should be pretty efficient in storing those. So that's the thing that's been on my mind to like try. Like before we try to implement integers or flags or whatever, I think we should probably give that a shot and like see what the space storage is like, and then if it's efficient, awesome.
Well, I'm also I haven't done an evaluation, but we have recently had this blog post about passing 150 million points.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, I'm now considering, essentially eliding. I don't want to take it out of the database because we don't do that, but we need to keep all of the original point casts. That's about the solar casts. Yeah. The radiation data from the solar casts is probably not good to be displaying.
Yeah, and even Ray called out that a lot of the SolarCast air data, even because of that date handling bug,
right?
Like that it is a value, but we have a lot of records in there where you probably have no way to know for sure when that value is actually taken. So,
Right. So,
yeah,
and the radiation data is the same, both with the
yeah.
date problem, and I've recently, like on mine, identified that the radiation readings are highly battery level dependent.
Yeah,
So
that's not good.
if the radiation data is really the radiation data and the battery state,
Yep.
you probably want to, and if people, if people want to find that, that's fine. If they're looking for that relationship, or if they want to, but it should be easily segregatable by anybody doing research, and taking this is the SafeCast data set for whatever geographic region, and doing some kind of correlation against, their butterfly data or something. Then they that stuff should be easily separated out, because it's dubious. It's dubious.
Yeah, and it's not something we can expect our customers, as it were, to discover on their own, right? Like probably they would just go ahead and use it and be totally unaware that actually there's this battery impact that we know about. So we need some way to like be able to communicate that information. So yeah, we don't have an answer yet.
More sophisticated in the future. In the future, we could get sophisticated to the point where we scroll through that data, or we scan through that data and find the ones where, and then correlate it with the battery data. We know, whenever the battery is below 3.7 volts, it's bad.
So drop that.
And then just but right now, I have a tendency to mark everything point cast or solar cast, so that you can at least filter it on the kind of sensor it was.
Well, that we have. Like, there's always the there's the URN, which often has that information, or there's the device class, which in cases, because I think like there's like I forget which devices it were. There's a couple of devices that all come in with the URN as like SafeCast, but the device class is different. And so like we have the data to know which is which for anything that comes into ingest. That's not true of like the BGAI uploads page we talked about before, because of Jan's device. Like if you upload a drive, we lose all information about what kind of device it came from. But at least for the ingest stuff that comes in JSON, we can add those sort of tags so that we know what it came from. But I think there still is this problem of how do we filter out data that we know is probably wrong. And so like a downstream consumer probably just doesn't want, like, it's not to say we're going to delete it, but we want to be able to not send that to
not publish it.
Yeah, exactly. And literally the closest thing we have right now is like that monster select statement that Nick manages, that I have no idea what most of it means. Like, I don't know, I think you've probably seen it. It's like the dump clean SQL, and it has all this sort of
yep.
ID not between this and this, and like location is not this and this.
It's a growing list of rules that. Yeah,
and I have no idea. Like, there's no comments or anything, so like I couldn't tell you why any of these IDs are.
And every once in a while, I remember I was at a little factory out in Funabashi, and I stopped the car because something was going on, and it was one of it was like BGAI number 3. So it was, still USB wires coming through the window and everything like that. And something was going funny with it. I had the laptop on the passenger seat, and what's going on? And I went out and like banged on it a little bit, to kind of, there's a loose wire. The audio wire out of the thing is kind of dirty. I pulled it out, cleaned it off and put it back in. And then I get back to, I don't know, I get home or something, I upload the data. And there's
you banging on the
CPM spike.
Yeah,
right?
From you banging on the box.
And so I didn't
filter that out.
So I didn't upload it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then about 9 months later, I've got all these files on SD cards in places, and some of them I uploaded, and some I didn't. Because sometimes I come back at midnight, and just all upload it in the morning. I don't get to it, and so I had somebody go through and take all those files and figure out which ones weren't in the database yet and upload them.
Yeah, and
that one
uploaded that one as well.
With that huge spike. Yeah. Suddenly there's on our map at the time was a different map, but suddenly there's this huge red column standing out of Funabashi. Yeah. Looks like some kind of nuclear weapon went off or something.
Yeah.
And so
it was just Joe banging on the box.
well, Nick filtered it out, so it just didn't show when people started asking about it. But it hasn't happened for about 3 years. But it used to be about once a year. The filter would get changed, or would be forgetting to implement it or something, and all of that noise, including that one, would be back on the map for a few hours.
Yeah.
So we need some way that's more robust to be able to label those things in the database and just not. I used to tell you we had, you know, when we put out we used to build a daily like download where you could grab a file and get all the data points, and that was the clean database. And there was for a while we made also the full database, which was errors, tests together,
everything.
And we still should. Both of those should still be available.
Yeah.
And because if somebody's a better data scientist than we are, and they want to do their own filtering, or if they're interested in the errors, those should be available.
Yeah,
if they're interested in the test data, the development data. But for most people or most uses, if they're a reporter trying to do a story on Fukushima, they just want the solid data set, or just the Geigy data.
The stuff that Safecast is stamped as being valid. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, whether it's like Safecast approved. Donk.
No, exactly. All right, I need to wrap up. I have a 10 o'clock in just a couple of minutes here, so I'll close the recording. It was a pleasure chatting as always, and yeah, we'll see what thoughts the rest of the team has.
Okay.
All right,
talk to you next week.
Jeff. All right, bye.